Hi and welcome to Let's Talk, all about books, social media and fun events going on in Auckland. Carole Beu will be in soon to review a good book from the shelves at the Women's Bookshop, and I'll be talking about corsets, which happens to be my word of the week. Now, in a world packed with sometimes baffling words and phrases, all of us need someone to explain things. And in Auckland, that's Max Cryer. He'll be in soon to unravel some curious terms from his latest book. But first, let's leave the nastiness of winter behind and dream about taking a cruise. Auckland travel specialist Anne Mellor is an expert on ships big and small and the seas they sail. Hello, Anne Mellor. Welcome to Let's Talk. It's lovely to have you here.
It's lovely to be back.
Yes, because you were on the show a lot last year, weren't you?
Yeah, I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah. Now, here we are, middle of winter, slush, mess, water falling from the sky, cold, wrapping up in shawls and things. This is the time of the year when one's mind turns to glorious sunshine and blue skies. And
sunny destinations.
Yes, and more New Zealanders are cottoning on to the world of cruising, in which you're a specialist now. So let's start off with the New Zealand cruising scene. It's just blown out of sight, hasn't it, in recent years? I suppose in about the last decade or two, more and more ships coming.
Absolutely.
Here.
I think more and more ships visiting, which of course really raises the whole profile of cruising and awareness of what it can offer.
Yes.
But also I think for New Zealanders, just to get away on an easy, short break, it's a fabulous thing to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't take long. You wander down to the terminal, check in, and you unpack once, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it
you
really
don't even have to get off on a plane at
well,
all,
you
which
don't,
is a wonderful
exactly,
boost.
and that's
Yes.
a real bonus.
Yes.
And actually, the figures from the International Cruise Council of Australasia say that New Zealand has grown in the year of 2011, so last year, 30%. In their cruising, so that's massive.
That's huge, isn't
and
it?
half of that is the Pacific. So 50% of the people cruising out of this country are cruising the Pacific. And again, that's because of the ease of it.
Yeah, and when I drive down from the shore coming to Auckland in the summer, I mean, you know, it's so common to see a couple of cruise ships in port, sometimes even three on a big day.
Absolutely.
They're just part of the downtown scenery now, aren't they? Which is a completely new thing for us.
It is. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I think, too, it raises our whole international feel of our city, doesn't it? Because you hear all these different languages around you, all that gorgeous crew with their whites and their stripes. I love them.
Yeah.
So, and also it's a wonderful way to showcase our city, because the ships are arriving plonk in the middle of town. And to be honest with you, that I think is one of the real keys of cruising. No matter where you are, the Pacific, the Mediterranean, you literally step off your ship and you're in a tiny little village or a beautiful town or a remote island. And in fact, I've just come off a ship in Vanuatu talking about sunny destinations, the Island Passage. Now she cruises here during summer and in winter goes up to the islands.
And your good husband is the captain on said ship, is he
my
not?
good husband is the captain, yes, that's quite right. Very lucky girl I am. But what struck me is the experience I had going into such incredibly remote places that you would never normally get to as a tourist. And the same can be said of the ship when it's in Auckland. Because it's more of an adventure style ship, you go out to the Great Barrier, you go to Tiri Tiri Matangi, into Kawau. Now a lot of Aucklanders have never been to those places. So that's another option for Kiwis too, is not necessarily around New Zealand, but just in our own waters right here.
Yes, and in a very stylish and comfortable way as well.
Very luxurious, gorgeous crew, wonderful food. And so you've got that mixed with the sort of adventure, the hiking. You can even go helicopter fishing. They have fishing boats on top that they lower down, so you can do the whole fishing scene, especially at somewhere like Great Barrier, out of Great Barrier there. And then on your way back, you stop into Waiheke for a bit of wine tasting. So it's a lovely mix.
Oh, sounds wonderful, yes. So then, having got ourselves a bit attuned to cruising in New Zealand waters, or local waters, if you can call the Pacific local, of course, then a lot of people think, there's all the rest of the world's oceans as well. So where else is the most popular place for New Zealanders to cruise to?
Looking again at the ICCA figures, you've got South Pacific 50%, and believe it or not, the next is Europe. And after Europe is New Zealand, so around New Zealand, and then you've got, of course, North America, Asia. I mean, you've also got wonderful adventure cruises to places like the Antarctic, the Arctic, you name it, you can do it. South America, wonderful cruising there, round the bottom, right round through the Straits of Magellan. The Galapagos, of course, just wonderful experiences. And I think a lot of Kiwis who are doing their cruising out of Auckland get a taste for it and love it. They love the all-inclusive, the value added, the fact that you've got entertainment every night in these beautiful Broadway theatres. You know, you can have a gorgeous massage in one of their wonderful spas on board, relax with a drink, you know, on the deck as you leave port. So there are all of these wonderful images and experiences, and they can be translated into any cruise ship anywhere in the world, either small or large.
You know, my favourite thing on a cruise ship, because in a few cruises, is not the casino, not even the shows, not even all of that stuff, but I just love going out at the stern at night and watching the great rumbling wash of the wake going off into the horizon, and the seabirds dancing over the wake and things. It's just, I just can't get enough of that view. It's amazing.
That is a gorgeous thing to do. And in fact, if you're booking
a bit strange though, not many people like to do that.
Where is Lindsay? She's not in the nightclub.
She's standing out at the stern.
Well, I actually had a very interesting night. One night I remember on a cruise ship dancing with the captain on the dance floor at midnight, because of course he'd just come off watch. And dancing, obviously tired, too long dancing, and I fell over. I fell back, and he went to grab me and came down on top of me on the dance floor. This was not a good look. And after that, went out the back and just thought, I'm not ever going back into that place. So I slid out the back and spent at least an hour watching the wake of the ship until everybody left who had seen me. But you're right, the wake is gorgeous. And in fact, a tip there is if you're booking on a big cruise ship, is to certainly book one of the back cabins. I like those the best. I agree with you.
Now, look, one of the things that people must be thinking about at the moment with all the trouble in Europe, I mean, we keep on seeing how horrendous it is in Greece, and you know, Italy's in trouble, da-di-da-di-da. And so some people might be a bit put off about going to such places and thinking that, you know, they're going to feel tension or in the air. So how is it?
Well, I think the first thing to remember is the flexibility of the cruise ship, and that's one of the huge advantages. If there's trouble in Tunisia or Egypt, then we can just change the itinerary. And in fact, this year we did, until recently, took out Alexandria out of MSC Cruise itinerary for that reason. Having said that, in most cases, you're visiting tiny little places that don't even get affected by it. Even somewhere like Athens, they're still going to welcome the tourists because we're bringing money into their city. But also when you're cruising that part of the world, you're going to go into tiny islands or tiny little villages like Katakalon. One of my favorites, right outside it, is the first Olympic stadium that was actually the first place ever that the Olympic Games were held, a place called Olympia. And I just love it with its gorgeous little trinkets and beautiful jewellery and wonderful little seafood cafes. Now the ship's bow is literally right over at the end of that town, and that's what it's all about, is visiting these little places away from all of that tension and stress.
And you can argue too that they're probably desperate for, you know, if we can afford to go, desperate for us to go there and spend, because if people stop coming, then their economies are in even worse trouble and their unemployment grows. And so actually, you know, it's a really nice thing to do for the ordinary people of those countries. It's just to sort of go and be there amongst and around them.
I think one of the things too is the pricing. I mean, it's so cheap. $800 for a week per person, shared twin, and you're getting all your meals included, your transportation. And that's one of the real appealing things for people cruising, whether it be around Auckland, around the Pacific or further afield, is that it's all inclusive. So you know your cost before you leave home.
So is that the average, about $800 a week per person?
It is at the moment, yes, absolutely. In the Mediterranean it is, and the same sort of thing around the Pacific too. Really good value for money.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because if you went and stayed in a hotel in Europe, I mean, they're so expensive. You know, even a pretty cheapy one can cost you hundreds of dollars a night.
And then you've got all your
plus
meals
all the
on
food
top.
and transport and cabs
and your
trains
and And also, I think one of the nice things about cruising in Europe or the Pacific, anywhere, is that you're in a safe environment, a comfortable environment. There's no stress, and so you can go off and be as adventuresome as you like, and then come back at night and relax.
And just collapse.
And collapse, exactly. And I think that's one of the really appealing things. Even just, excuse me, out to Waiheke or Great Barrier or cruising into the Pacific Ocean. You're going ashore, say, in Vila, for example, where I was just a couple of days ago. The place was flooded with Kiwis, actually, who had sailed out of Auckland to do the Pacific Islands, and they were just loving it. They were experiencing the
By
French
sailing,
food.
you mean on yachts, you mean?
No, I mean on a cruise ship.
Oh, on cruise ships, yes.
Yes, yeah, there was 2 cruise ships in while I was up in Vanuatu, big ones. our P&O actually. And so there they are, just really soaking up the atmosphere and living the life just for a day. People say, well, you know, you're only there for a day, what are you going to do? But it's a snapshot of these places.
Yeah.
That's what cruising is about. It's getting to places you wouldn't normally get and getting huge experiences.
The Baltic seems to be really popular too. Does MSC have cruises there?
Yes, we do, actually. We do. We've got departures out of Southampton, Copenhagen, Amsterdam and Hamburg, all the way up into St. Petersburg, but really interesting up through the Norwegian fjords, North Cape, Iceland. You know, these are places that we never got to before, so that's what's fabulous about it.
Yeah, and Alaska, that was really popular a few years ago, it seems, but I don't hear so many people talk about it now.
Oh, I think it always will be. It's one of those one-off things you do, you know, to cruise the Inside Passage. And there you're going to see amazing wildlife in these tiny little old gold rush towns, you know, so very diverse experiences, and then combine it with Canada.
All sounds very dreamy. We shall now go out into the rain again. But
Exactly.
Thank you very much indeed for helping us do some dreaming, Anne.
My pleasure.
Who'd have thought corset would be a word in common use again? There was a time when women threw them out with glee, thrilled to be rid of undergarments that made it hard to move, let alone to breathe. But the corset's making a comeback. Online retailer eBay, which is Trade Me for the rest of the planet, reports a 185% increase in the last 3 months in the number of corsets being sold. Apparently it's to do with the current boom in retro fashion. Some dresses just don't look good without the right underpinnings. Corsets sported by the likes of Lady Gaga, Beyonce and Madonna are also having an influence. But some waist shrinkers are best kept out of sight. Today, every bride at every wedding is wearing something really unattractive underneath her skin-tight bodice, a body-shaping garment called Spanx. Nothing like them, I'm told, for making you look a dress size smaller. I gather they're hell to put on and a huge relief to take off. Now, if they didn't look quite so like those leggings they put on hospital patients to fend off blood clots, I might give them a go. My next guest, Max Cryer, is a man of many talents. A TV producer and quizmaster, broadcaster, entertainment producer, singer, cabaret performer, teacher and author. He holds a master's degree with honours in language and literature, all of which makes him perfectly qualified to be talking about his latest book, Curious English Words and Phrases, the truth behind the expressions we use. Hello, Max Cryer. It's such a pleasure to have you here at Let's Talk. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Well, let's talk.
And congratulations on this book, Curious English Words and Phrases, which I think is your 11th. I Googled you, of course, and went through the list of all of your books, and I thought, wow, you have written a lot.
I'm beginning to lose count.
Yes.
But it's usually about the English language.
Yes, of course. Although Curious English Words and Phrases did make me wonder, have you got anything coming up in any other languages? Are we about to see curious French words and phrases or anything?
I don't really feel competent to launch into curious French or curious. I mean, in earlier days I was quite familiar with French and with German, and I worked in Spain for a year, but at the moment I'm thinking only in English.
Right, I'm sure. Well, there's plenty in English to keep one amused.
It's never
there?
ending.
Yes.
It's never ending.
Oh,
it just goes on every day. Something new crops up. I've been on radio now answering listeners' questions for 16 years.
Wow.
And they never stop coming.
Yes, you're on Radio Live now, I think.
Radio
I've heard you
Live,
there at the weekends. Yes.
Yes, Saturdays on Radio Live.
And so some of this material that you've spoken on the radio and since refined?
Some, but not all.
Right. Now, you've got some fascinating, curious words and phrases here, and some of them, you gave me a little list in particular of ones that you'd prepared for today, and some of them you'd look at and it would be something I wouldn't think twice about, really, like punch, as in the drink. But it just hadn't occurred to me to think, where does punch come from? Where does punch come from?
Well, those sort of things come as a surprise to me, like when it's something exactly as you say. I think when you drink punch at a wedding or a party, you never think about it. But then someone said, why is it called punch? What's it got to do? Well, it has nothing to do with that at all. It's actually an Indian word, punka, and it means 5. Because a traditional punch has got 5 things. It's got, yes, liquor, fruit juice, milk and water, and then some sort of sweetener. and that's
Milk?
the old. Yes, well, you can have milk punch.
Right.
But because it's 5, the word for 5 became the name for the drink. But there's no connection at all with this punch, because that's a variation on pounce. 2 different words altogether.
Gosh, how amazing. And of course they come in non-alcoholic and alcoholic these days.
Yes,
but
of course.
I think most people think of punch as being something that's safe to drink, but sometimes not,
Well,
because you can't tell when
no,
what's in it unless someone tells you.
Because
Yes.
no one's going to stick to that old Indian formula of having 5. I mean, there could be vodka and gin together in there if you're not careful.
Indeed. And speaking of something which sounds vaguely Indian, does giving me jip anything to do with India?
No, that's an example of contraction where 2 words have been squashed into one. It's giving me G up.
Oh, right.
As in a horse, you know, when you G up the horse. Well, if something is, you put a little leaf or something under the horse's saddle, it'll itchy. So when you're being given G up, it means you're being irritable about something, or they're forced into action, and that's just shortened to jip.
And G as in horse, that's an interesting word too, isn't it? For children we talk about GGs, meaning horses. Do you know the derivation of G?
That's a very complicated one. How long have you got?
Yes. But I'm amazed that you know. This is incredible, yes. And so another thing that you've come up with in this book, herbs and spices. Which is which?
There's no actual rule. It's like the same thing with vegetables and fruit. There's no actual ironclad rule. Normally you say fruit is anything with seeds, that is fruit, and vegetables, no. But then of course that makes pumpkin a fruit, which doesn't quite work, and tomatoes have always been in doubt. Herbs are green and spices aren't. That's the sort of general rule. Herbs are usually the leaves of something, but the stalks, the bark, the seeds, and all the other bits are spices. When you think about it, they're brown.
Yes, that's true, yes.
Or red or
Whereas
orange.
the herbs are all sort of basil and mint and chervil and all of
exactly.
that sort of thing.
But there could be exceptions. Someone's probably going to write in right now and say, no, I know a herb that's brown. Because it's not a rule, but that's the general division. Herbs are leaves and everything else is spices.
Wow. And loft. How are we speaking of loft here? Are we speaking of loft as in the top of a house?
We're speaking of loft as in the top of a house, and it's undergoing a change. It's like all that awful internet language. A loft is from the German word Luft, meaning air, and a loft is, as you so rightly say, at the top. It's where the organ is in the church, it's where the pigeons live up in the pigeon loft, it's the place above the ceiling in a loft. But for some bizarre reason, Americans decided that the word loft was attractive, and so they started saying loft apartments when they weren't. And I was astonished in San Francisco once when there was a sign up saying, you know, for sale, loft apartments, and they were street level.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Because then you imagine that it would have a lovely raftered ceiling and things, wouldn't you, a loft apartment?
But no, and it's happening in New Zealand. I saw loft apartments for sale in New Zealand the other day, and they were only 1 or 2 stories high. So the word is, you find an attractive word and people use it in a way that will sell something.
Yeah, so it's just sort of edging itself into what some people call house porn, isn't it? Yes, all that lovely language which makes you sort of lust after something.
Handyman's dream, that sort of thing.
That's the one, yes. Hat trick is another little phrase that you want to mention.
Well, that's actually quite simple. It dates back to early centuries when cricket was a big deal in England, and still is. And if a person bowled out someone else in the team 3 times, they were allowed to buy a free hat.
Gosh.
It's as simple as that, and that's what a hat trick was. Of course, nowadays, men so seldom wear hats anyway that the practice has died out, but the phrase lives on. Hat trick means 3 of something.
Yeah, there's so many phrases connected with that, like tipping your hat, and which of course men used to do that sort of tippy thing with their heads and hats in the old days when they passed a lady in the street.
Yes, but if you don't have a hat, it's quite difficult to do.
And you never do it with a turned round back to front baseball cap, of course.
But there's so much symbolism about hats. I could never understand why there was so much criticism. The Prime Minister of Britain's wife didn't wear a hat to Prince William's wedding, and everybody said, oh, she should have worn. But nobody could tell me, why is it a bad thing that she didn't wear a hat? What's it got to do with it?
The British society ladies' hats are extraordinary, aren't they? I mean, it's just amazing what they wear. It
was New Zealanders saying it, you know, oh, she should have worn a hat. And I'd say, why? And because my life is built entirely around the word why.
And it's like the other thing, when the terrible sin that Helen Clark committed when she wore trousers for dinner with the Queen. I mean, oh, how dare she do that? Yes.
Nobody can explain why, though, can they?
Yes, which also had echoes in last week's thing about the reporter wearing disco sequined trousers to the famous Guy trial.
Yes, but that was misreported because I read a couple of times she was thrown out, but she wasn't thrown out. She was asked to leave the media stand,
and
which
sit
is
in
quite
a more
different.
discreet
And of course,
position.
I remember the line from that wonderful TV series, The Nanny, where the nanny said once that God had decreed that sequins shouldn't be worn until after 5 p.m.
Oh dear. Head Sherang. Who on earth is a head Sherang?
Well, the boss. The head Sherang is the CEO, the
Yes.
man who actually steers, and it is from steering because it's an Urdu word meaning a commander of a ship.
Oh, really?
And it doesn't need head because if you say Sherang, that is the boss. But it's like saying rich millionaire.
Yes,
You know, a millionaire is rich, so you don't need.
Yes.
If you say head Sherang, you're actually doubling up. But it's an Indian word which has moved over into English and is used quite often. Do you not know that word?
I do know that, yeah, but not where it had come from.
Oh,
yes.
no.
There's
Well,
so many wonderful shipping terms, aren't there? I was fascinated once to discover, because I come from a magazine background, and mags, we always talk about the masthead, which is the
Yes.
name at the top of the
Yes,
cover of the magazine. And it took me years to find out that the word came from the little plate that they used to nail onto the bottom of the mast on the ship, which had all the details of who the name of the ship and the owner and everything. I mean, it just...
Somebody who died,
Yeah.
I didn't even know them, but so I got a letter saying that their husband had died and they had a book, Admiral Byrd's Book of Sea Talk, Sea Language, Dictionary of Sea Language. It's huge. And do you know, that book on my shelf I go to every day because there's so many terms in English come from the sea.
Yes.
It's astonishing how many there are, but actually I didn't know that about masthead. Thank you for telling me.
No, it's a lovely one, yes. And doing some genealogy recently too, I came across something about where on a ship they hadn't done the crossing the line ceremony, they'd had the dead horse ceremony instead.
The
So
dead horse.
I had to do a whole lot of research on that to find out about dead horse, meaning a debt that a sailor owed, and at a certain time in the voyage they'd have the ceremony and create a crazy sort of horse which someone would shoot and then throw overboard. I had no idea about any of this
It's
stuff.
all in Admiral Byrd's Sea Dictionary.
Yes, it's just wonderful. Ping pong. Tell me about ping pong.
Well, ping pong has nothing to do with Oriental people. It sort of sounds Chinese, but it's not. It began with military people, British military people, who put books on the table, and then they hit a ball over it with another book. And it was first marketed in the early 1900s as Whiff Waff, and then it was called Wim Wham, and then it was called Gossamer, and then someone actually trademarked. Ping pong is a trademark name.
Is it?
Yes, and it means ping is when the bat hits the ball, and pong is when the ball hits the table. So you've got ping pong, and that is a trade name which you've got to be careful of because it's owned by a company.
But of course, if you're playing it terribly seriously at the Olympics, you have to call it table tennis.
Yes,
don't
indeed, you
which is
do,
an
yes.
entirely different thing. Yes.
Well, you do, because you
Yes.
could be in trouble if a commentator uses a trade name. It's like people are always surprised when I explain that Happy Birthday is copyright. Happy Birthday was composed by 2 kindergarten teachers, and it's copyright until 2030. If you sing it, I mean,
we sing it a zillion times a day.
in
around the
private,
planet.
that's okay.
Yes.
In your mother's birthday or your children's birthday, that's fine. But if it's on a TV show or a radio recording or on the stage, you have to pay.
So when Marilyn Monroe sang "Happy Birthday, President Kennedy," they would have had to pay.
I would have.
think?
It's possible that in that circumstance, the copyright holder said, "Well, we'll allow that to happen because it was good publicity for the song."
Oh, Max, we could talk on for ages, but time's run out. Thank you very much for being here.
No, thank you too.
We often see people playing rock, paper, scissors in overseas movies and TV shows, though it doesn't seem that common in New Zealand. We're more likely to toss coins or draw straws to work out who's going to go first in some game or activity. If you don't know how it works, the idea is to randomly throw one of 3 hand gestures at your opponent. A fist represents a rock, a straight hand stands for paper, and spread fingers stands for scissors. A rock can break scissors, so would win over the rock. Scissors cut paper and so beat the paper gesture, and paper can wrap up rock and so wins out over the fist. Now there are world tournaments in playing the game, and now we hear that a Tokyo University has invented a robot that can beat really fast humans at it. The robot has high-speed vision that recognises the changing shape of a person's hand and puts out its own hand with the right gesture in a millisecond to beat the human 100% of the time. Now, to what useful purpose that can be put is anyone's guess. But this is certainly the geekiest thing we saw on YouTube all week. And it's welcome again to Carole Beu from the Women's Bookshop. What reading delights do you have in store for us this week?
I try every now and again to keep up with things that are being written for younger people, and this is Rachael King with her first book for children. Now it's a novel, and it's for, I would say, 8-year-olds up to 12 or 13-year-olds, but I loved it as an adult. It's Red Rocks, it's called, and for anyone familiar with Wellington, it's set at Red Rocks, which is round that rough southern coast of Wellington, just round past Island Bay. And this boy, Jake, goes to stay with his dad for the school holidays, and his dad lives there and is writing a book on this rough coast, living in a little cottage there right on the sea. And Jake spends, because his dad's busy writing, Jake spends a lot of time exploring that coastline, and he loves the seals. And the whole story really is about selkies. He meets an old man and makes friends with him, and he meets this old man's granddaughter who's slightly strange, has beautiful brown eyes, and loves swimming, and seems to not feel the cold when she's swimming in the water. And of course, you know, it takes Jake a long time to understand, because there was another woman as well, an adult woman, and you as a reader realise that she's a selkie, but
so just for anyone who doesn't know, so the selkie is a seal who takes on human form.
Yes,
is that right? So is it an Irish tradition?
Yes,
I think.
Yes, yeah. It's and it's a sort of mythological creature, really. The seal sheds its skin and hides it, and becomes human, and then can go back and put the seal skin back on and go back. And if you can't, I mean, if a selkie can't find his or her skin, I'm pretty sure it's her actually, her skin. Can the men do it? I don't know. It's an interesting thought.
I've only ever heard of girls. Yeah.
Yes,
and I suppose the Little Mermaid is a kind of version of it as well, but in world mythology.
Yes, and you would get trapped, you see, in human form if you couldn't put your seal skin back on again. Now, Jake finds, the whole thing starts getting complicated when Jake finds a seal skin in a tiny cave tucked in the rocks. He doesn't realise the significance of taking it. He's so excited by it, he takes it home with him and hides it. Doesn't tell his dad, because he thinks he'll get into trouble. His relationship with his dad is lovely. His mum and her new husband and his new baby brother are back in Auckland. And so there's interesting stuff about the family dynamics as well. He has a nice relationship with his dad. Dad is just dad, and is a writer, and they get on really well. But he doesn't tell Dad that, because he sort of senses that to have taken this sealskin is maybe not the right thing to have done. And it gets quite complicated with the selkies, but it's beautifully written. It's simple and clear, and he's a lovely character, Jake. He's a boy he'd be 8 or 9, and he's a boy who would do his best always. He doesn't want to do anything bad. He's kind.
So you'd think this would be a book that would be enjoyed by boys as well as girls, and it's quite tricky, that young adult thing, isn't it? Because sometimes boys go, oh, that's going to be a girly book, I'm not going to go there.
No, there are a couple of really tough boys in here who are unkind to Jake. No, I think it's written very much for boys. I think girls will love it as well because of the whole selkie element.
Yeah, and that slight magical element as well.
Yeah.
That's really lovely that Rachael has written this book, because she's